This is part 2 of the series of lectures on private companies. In the first part, I posed a question and I left you to think about it, and in this part, I'm going to answer the question. So the answer is that these friends, that is the 4 friends who want to now quit the company and transfer their shares to somebody else so that they can get money in return, cannot do that. They're legally not allowed to do so, and in order to understand the reason behind this rule, that is this restriction on the transfer of shares, let me explain the situation so that the rule is going to be very easy for you to remember. Now, just for a moment, imagine that we did not have this rule in place, and for instance, these 4 friends, that is the group of 4 friends who want money in return for their shares, are allowed to do that. What do you think is going to happen in that situation? Well, let's say that all 4 of these friends sell their shares to Mr. X, and Mr. X gives money to each of these 4 people, and now Mr. X is basically going to be the shareholder in this private company, and now instead of having 6 people as we originally had in the private company, now there are just 3 people in this private company, and out of those 3 people there is just one person, Mr. X, who holds the majority of the shares in this company, and the other 2 people do not hold that many shares as Mr. X alone holds. And obviously, when somebody is holding the majority of the shares in a company, this means essentially that that person can have more of a say in that company, and that company's decisions are going to be dependent on this person who holds majority of the shares in the company. And as you can probably imagine, that the other 2 people who originally started out the company with the other 4 friends, that is this group of 6 people, out of those, the 2 people who are still left in the company are obviously not going to be happy with this situation. Why? Because they had started out thinking that it's a group of friends who are starting out with this company, and they thought that they're going to have the say in whatever decisions are going to be made regarding the company. However, now that there is just one person who holds more of the shares than either of these 2 people holds, then obviously they're going to be very disappointed, and they would not want such a situation to arise in the first place. This is why a private company restricts the right to transfer shares to any other person that easily. Now, notice that I used the word restricts, and I did not say that they are prohibited from transferring shares. So yes, shares can be transferred, however, certain formalities have to be complied with before that can be done. So like I said very briefly, that it's not that easy. For now, just remember that the right to transfer shares is not prohibited. It's not an outright prohibition, it's just a restriction. And for now, the take-home message from this video is that if a group of people wants to start a company where they want to prevent the possibility of the members later on leaving and transferring their shares very easily to a third person who may be a stranger to these other people within that private company, then in this kind of situation, this group of people is best advised to create a private company which by its articles is going to restrict the transfer of shares to another person. Now this point brings us to the first rule relating to private companies, and in the next few videos we are going to look at the other 2 rules relating to private companies. For now, just remember that the rule imposes a restriction and not a prohibition. So, for instance, if in a private company all of the members agree that some of the members can go ahead and transfer their shares to a third person who may be a stranger to these other people, then in that situation, as long as the other members agree, then this is possible. That is, the transfer of shares is possible and is allowed. However, there is a restriction, that is, you have to obtain the permission from all of the members involved in that private company. So this brings me to the end of this video. I'm going to continue talking about private companies in the other videos, in which we will look at the other rules relating to private companies.